Well, usually questions are the most interesting. How is this to be done? Are you going to hand a microphone? Do people come up? Stand up? Stand up and speak loudly. In the middle, in the back. Yes.
Yes, Terence. I was wondering if you could share with us your ideas on what spirit is.
Well, I think it's my notion of it is it's that the way we experience it, it's an informing understanding. It's on one level, it's simply appropriate activity, knowing how to do everything because it is the Tao of the ancestors. In other words, you can sort of see yourself as the most recent version of your family's genes. And in all traditional activities, there's millions of years of morphogenetic fields stored up for how you pick something up, how you sit something down. So in the immediate sense, the manifestation of spirit is appropriate activity. What it really is, I think, is some kind of hidden how-ness that makes everything be as it is. And that's what the spirit is. In other words, science describes the possible things that can happen. Science is the study of possibilities. And what nobody has ever answered is how is it that out of the entire class of possibilities, certain things actually undergo the formality of occurring. Somehow they are selected out of the class of the possible and they become the actual. Well, the thing which mediates the coming into being of the actual out of the class of the possible is what I think the spirit is. It is the invisible hand, if you will. It is the guiding force. It is the invisible landscape over which becoming flows like a river. It defines, it creates. It is this telos that I mentioned, this attractor at the end of time. Yes, back there.
Yes, Terence, has there been any research that you know of in relation to electron spin resonance recently since the invisible landscape? And secondly, can tryptamine act as a mechanism for release of genetically stored material through that ESR, electron spin resonance, with an interpolation of tryptamine, what's getting longer, as substances into the neural DNA? In essence, is that a genetic mechanism for racial movement?
Well, in the invisible landscape, that's what we were suggesting. And the invisible landscape was published in 1975. Since then, there's been a lot of work with NMR and ESR, none of it which overthrows this idea. It's a real question about where is the epigenetic data stored? In other words, all the memories that you accumulate during your life die with you. Your genetic material you can pass on at least half to your children. And so during the life of the individual, this epigenetic material, experience, anecdotes, memories, anticipations, where is it molecularly stored, or is it molecularly stored? In the invisible landscape, we were suggesting that thought is actually a naturally occurring ESR readout of portions of the DNA which were not associated with genetic expression, but which were somehow like writable memory in a computer. The epigenetic stuff was being stored there. There's no data to overthrow that notion that I'm aware of. I don't cling to it as strongly as I once did. I look more and more. I didn't realize that this was a fundamental break this allowing of spirit into the scientific model of the world. And I now think of the brain as a receiver of the phenomenon of consciousness. That I don't believe that consciousness is generated in the brain any more than that television programs are made inside my TV. You know, the box is too small. You know, it just obviously is too small. I mean, it might not be if you didn't have the psychedelic experience, but once you splice that and you say, well, it's taking, 10 high 16 megabytes of memory to store this database, so it just doesn't, I just don't think it would be done like that. I think that there is somehow this field phenomenon that I keep returning to. This is another slice on what the spirit is. It is this field of some sort of energy that organisms, as they evolve, discover, right? Already somehow present in the environment. It is the appetition for being that drives organic evolution into this kind of dance of relatedness to this other thing which it can transduce from another dimension. That's why, if you take consciousness expansion, the phrase, or consciousness enhancement seriously, it must be very important, because consciousness is, after all, what it's all made out of. That's the name of the game. So this transducing of higher states of consciousness then seems very important. Even at that, it will be necessary to elucidate the physical mechanism, whether it's ESR, NMR, or what it is. An interesting sort of opportunity for psychedelic research. You see, the amazing thing about psychedelics is not only that they are illegal and restricted from the so-called ordinary person, but they are restricted to scientific research. Nobody can do research on psychedelics. I mean, it is professionally and practically impossible to do it. Well, there's no other area where this is true. I mean, science probes obscenely into the most private areas of our sex lives, our social lives, our dream lives. Monkeys are smashed against walls to study. I mean, there's no limit to it. And yet there's this total hands-off attitude toward the psychedelics. So an interesting break in this front is the sudden need, because of computer-assisted tomography, CAT scanning, the need for compounds which locate in certain highly defined parts of the brain. If you could tritiate these drug compounds and make them radioactive, you could make very nice pictures of various parts of the brain. So now suddenly there is an interest in all this old psychedelic research about the receptor site and location densities of molecules in the brain. So we may be on the brink of an era where to have a psilocybin trip in the evening, you must have signed on for a CAT scan at General Hospital in the morning. Someone else.